Excellent. We are live. Okay. I think I got everything set up. Just as usual, just a little bit of thumbs up that the audio and visual is good. Looks like we got 21 people online already. 22. Nice. Hope everyone's doing good. Okay. There we are. Mr. Francis, Mr. Powers. Dr. Bob's here. Thank you. Okay. Get a swig of coffee to get going. It's been a fun week. Um if you so the hangout this Friday, if you join, I'll might give some sneak peeks of some stuff I've been working on. Not gonna do it here on the live stream, but yeah, Friday on the hangout. If I can, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to attend this week's hangout. I'm not sure. Possibly 50-50 chance. Kids are on spring break, and we might head out somewhere because last week we were gonna go to Six Flags. Drove all the way out there. They were closed. Felt like an idiot. Hey, I got a cool new hat today. Jason, I don't know if you're on here. Jason England, longtime RapReaver user. It's kind of been in and out of the community, but he's going to be making a new website and sent me this cool new hat. Right? So pretty slick. Happy with that. Hey, hello from Germany. Hey, Tom. Yeah, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your account name. That's yeah, that's a German word. I'm going to butcher it if I try to say that one, Tom. um just to update yesterday, did some I know I've been posting, if you've been reading my emails, I've been working on a new workbench, and I got the tabletops all cut down and put on there last night, so super stoked about that. It looks nice. So anyway, but you're not here to talk about that. You are oh, the Shelter Dog website. Oh, I love that website. It's a good one. I know which one it is. Um, so today I thought it would be fun to kind of go back to some basics, right? And to talk about warehousing, because I know it's to be honest, man, I got some gunk on my glasses. Warehousing is it's kind of a term that I'm not sure who came up with it. It is kind of a rapid weaver term. I'll be honest. Like if you go out to a regular web designer and they're like, and you like, I'm going to warehouse my images, the web designer is going to be like, what are you talking about? Because to a normal web designer, everything is warehoused, right? So that's just like the normal workflow. So yeah, just to let you guys know that the term warehousing, I'm not sure who originally coined it. But I mean, it fits, right? It makes sense because you're kind of storing it up on the server and whatnot. But it is not an industry wide term. So if you go to Google and say warehouse images or something like that, you're probably not going to find much because yeah, it's definitely a term that's within our niche, however you want to call it. Mike, you watching? I forget which way you like. I think it's niche you like. I don't know. I'm going to say niche. Um, so yeah, warehousing is definitely not an industry-wide term. It is definitely a term that's in our niche. But yeah, today we're going to go over it. Essentially, what it is uploading files to your server, and then how do you get the URL to that server, or to the file on your server? Okay, and on top of that, we might talk about the different types of. I thought one thing I've always wanted to kind of teach people is the various types of paths, okay, and how you can reference a file and whatnot. So we're going to go over 3 different ways to reference files. We're going to go over relative paths, absolute paths, and URLs. So we're going to go over all those as well, kind of lump that into this topic, okay? Data warehouse. Yes, data warehouse is and that's, I guess that's kind of similar where warehousing our images. A data warehouse is normally like a database, right? So that definitely is a technology term, a data warehouse. So let's dive in, and we're going to start off in. So I'm gonna also try to show two different apps today because I use Transmit. That's like my go-to FTP app. So we are going to be using Transmit today primarily. I'll also go into. I know a lot of people use Forklift. It's also on SetApp. Forklift is on SetApp. And I installed it like 10 minutes ago. So I installed it. We'll see me configure it out of the box. Okay. So yeah, so we're just going to upload some files. I didn't even prepare any files. We'll find some interesting ones to upload. Okay. And then we'll hop into RapidWeaver and show you all of that. Okay. So it is critical to properly set up your FTP app if you want to warehouse images. Okay, we're going to go on to my sandbox site. So and to show you, I'm going to go ahead and edit this, and we're going to look at everything in here. Okay, now, so here I have my server, username and password, obviously. Protocol. Hopefully your host supports SFTP. It really should. If your host doesn't support SFTP, you might want to think about looking at a new host because I don't know. That just says a lot about the hosting company to me if they're not going to support SFTP. Okay. Next up is your remote URL. And these are the two settings that a lot of people miss. Okay. They put in their server, the username and password, and then that's it. But these next few settings are very important as well if you want to make your life easier for warehousing images. So this is the root URL. And this is essentially the website URL to this folder that is on my server. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go into, and then this last one is local path. This particular website, I don't have a local path, but I'll show you an example of that as well. Let's dive in. I'm gonna connect to the server really quick. All right, and if we look normal now, if I didn't have those two settings set and I FTP'd in, this is where I would be. Right, I'd be in here, and then every time I'd have to go into websites. And then I'd have to go into sandbox.joework.net. And then there we go. Right. So that saves me a little bit of time. And a lot of times what I'll do is you'll notice in this websites folder, I have tons of different folders for different websites. And if there's any other a website that I want to maybe frequently access from Transmit, I will create a separate connection here. Okay. Even if it's on the same server. If you notice this and this, they're all on my DreamHost server, okay? And basically, I have them set up as separate connections because these settings are different. Because I want to double click on that server, and it will take me directly to the folder, and it will have the remote URL all configured and whatnot, okay? Now, why are these settings important? It's not just to save time. It's not just to, if I, yes, it's nice when I double click on this, it takes me directly to the folder on my server. But there's more to it than that. Let's say, for example, I have an image here. Let's find an image somewhere. I recently blew away everything. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to upload an image really quick. So I just dragged and dropped this file, okay, here. And I'm going to right click on this file. And if you notice, there is a, where's the copy URL button? Oh, copy URL. It's right under my mouse. Hopefully you guys can see that, right? There's a copy URL button. That copy URL button exists because I have my website URL and I have those settings properly configured. And let's go ahead and copy that. And I'm just going to go to the browser really quick, and I'm going to paste that in. If you notice, what it did is it pasted the URL. So it has my domain, and then it has the name of the name of the image. And if I hit enter, guess what? Boom. We have successfully warehoused an image. This is really, really simple, right? And I mean, warehousing it's not rocket science, okay? Even though we have a rocket scientist right here in our browser window, okay? It's just the URL and then the path to the file and then the file name. That's all warehousing is. It's just a URL with the folder and path and file name to the file you want to link to. That's it. Okay? It's just like, now if I were to have this inside of a lot of times what I'll do is, I don't have it on this particular domain, but a lot of times what I'll do is I will create a special folder. Okay? And let's do new folder. And a lot of times I'll call this either warehouse or depot. I tend to use depot a lot. So we'll do depot. Okay. I don't know why. It's just kind of a term. So I have a folder called depot. And then inside there, that's where I upload all of my various files. Okay. RapidWeaver creates one called resources. So that's where RapidWeaver uploads its warehoused files. You can use resources folder as well if you want. Okay. But you can create a folder, whatever you want, whether it's warehouse, whether it's files, whether it's depot, whatever you want. Okay. And I moved this particular image into that depot folder. And guess what? Because I moved it, this URL is no longer valid. Doesn't work anymore. Not found. But if I go ahead and because I moved it into depot, I can copy this URL and paste it. And there it is. And if we just look at this URL structure, hopefully you can see it. It's sandbox.joeworkman.net. Here, let's open this up. And let's open it in a text editor and let's analyze this path. All right. We're just going to paste this in. All right. And we'll make it big so you guys can see it. Man, my machine is lagging today. There we go. Okay. I hit that magnified. I hope that it stops. Okay. All right. So let's look at this path. So I have my website, which is sandbox.joeworkman.net. Okay. And remember, I had the where is transmit? I created a folder called depot. And guess what? I have /depot because that's the folder. And then inside the depot is the file name Yeti round PNG. And guess what? That comes after the folder. Right? So it's purely a URL to a warehoused file or image is purely the domain and then the entire folder structure to that file. Now, of course, if I had I can organize these if under depot, if I want a new folder, and let's say I want a special folder for images, and then I have Yeti round, maybe, and then maybe under depot, you can organize your things however you want. Okay. Maybe you have a folder for PDFs or something like that, right? Or manuals or whatever, right? You can organize this, have as many files as you want, and then and then you can organize them as much as you want, right? And then obviously I added that subfolder, so now this is now the URL to this is now depot images Yeti round. So as you see, it's really simple. Now, how do we use these links or URLs or whatever inside RapidWeaver? Actually, before we hop into RapidWeaver, let's just quickly look at Forklift. I think it would be interesting to set up Forklift to do basically this. So, I already had a lot of this set up. So let's just go ahead and set up Forklift. Let's just go ahead and minimize, close that. Okay. I'm going to set up Forklift really quick, all from scratch, so you guys can see this done. I used Forklift many years ago, and this version's all new. I did realize I did struggle when I first launched Forklift 10 minutes ago. I was like, how the heck do I connect to a server? And it was a little unintuitive. You click this little button and you say new favorite, and then that creates the connection. How is a favorite? I was looking for connect to server or something, right? But there we go. New favorite. Okay. And let's just connect to my sandbox site. So we're going to call this sandbox. It's going to be SFTP. My server is dreamhost.joeworkman.net. I think that's my password. Now, by default, this little caret is hidden. Okay. You're going to want to unhide that because we want other stuff. Okay. We want the path to be /home/joeworkman/ Now, what's nice about transmit is you don't have to type this out. It actually has like a little browse button, I think. But I know that the path is all right. Local path, like I said, I don't have a local path here, but let me show you what this is. All right. Let me create just a temporary thing here. I'll create a folder in here. Sandbox.joeworkman.net. Okay. And just for fun, I'm just going to have a file in there so we can see what it is. All right. So I just upload this. All right. Okay, so then in my local path, I'm going to point it to this. And essentially what this means is a lot of times you'll, if you're using Forklift or Transmit to publish your websites, what you do is you would use Stacks or RapidWeaver to export your site to this folder. You would publish it locally. And then when you were inside Forklift or Transmit, you could then have one view as the server side, and then this view is your local Mac. So let's go ahead and go into local path, and we will go into my websites folder. Let's find sandbox. Let's do open. Okay. And now here, the base URL, this is going to be https sandbox.joeworkman.net. Okay. I think that's it. Let's see if I did it right. Oh, you clicked OK, but then it didn't launch it. That's kind of funky. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I need to type in my thing. Always allow. Yay! Okay, so that actually worked. Sweet. Okay, so what this does is, if you look over here, it opened up this folder on my Mac. Okay, and then over here, because this is kind of a dual pane view, right? You have your local Mac here, and then your server over here. And so there we go. I have all my, and hopefully this has the same feature. If I go to Depot and go to images and click on this, I can right click and say copy URL to clipboard. Okay, so same exact functionality as Transmit. I didn't know they had this feature. I was just assuming it did because it seems like a very basic feature of any FTP app. So luckily Forklift has it. There we go. Okay. And just kind of, I guess, show you what you could potentially do here is, let's say I was in RapidWeaver. Let's go ahead and launch RapidWeaver. While we're giving oh, why is, it's weird. Oh, this is the project I wanted to open too. Cool. Perfect. RapidWeaver new. So here I have just a simple page. Okay. And what I wanted to do is now if I were to click this publish button, it would actually publish to my server. Okay. Because I just have this is my sandbox site. So I just publish directly. Okay. But you could go ahead and if we did publishing setup, and just for fun, I'm going to add a new destination. We're going to local folder. Okay. And we're going to choose this folder. A lot of times here, let's do, we're going to edit that. Dream host. Okay. Local folder. Oops. Fodler folder. Okay. So we're going to do publish to a local folder. We're going to choose the folder. I'm going to do websites, sandbox.joeworkman.net. This really isn't about warehousing, but I figured, I'm down this rabbit hole, might as well go into it. Website address, https sandbox.joeworkman.net. Backup, we don't need an htaccess file. Okay, cool. So now, if I go to, you see in the publish up here, it says publish, and then underneath it says DreamHost. And what it does is, if you notice, I didn't tell you what I was doing. I gave these two publishing things different names. This one's DreamHost, which is my server, and this one's local folder. Okay, so you can't have as many publishing destinations as you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to click and say local folder, and I'm going to hit publish. And what RapidWeaver should be doing, there we go, is it will publish everything. Basically, it's the same thing as doing like file export. It's just a little bit more convenient. Okay, so voila, it's done. Okay, let's go ahead and just minimize that really quick. And you'll see here now, I have all of these files and folders that are the website. Okay, now if I wanted to use Forklift, again, I'm not a Forklift user here. I think you click this sync button. And then what that will do is that will sync everything from your local machine to your website. Okay. It'll even update and delete and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Transmit has pretty much the same exact stuff, right? So this is pretty cool. Okay. So yeah. So you can even do a bilateral sync and whatnot. But this is, if you wanted to use Transmit or Forklift to publish, this is how I would do it. Okay. You publish locally to a folder on your Mac, and then you can sync those or publish those changes. And Transmit and Forklift, they're smart. They kind of analyze what's on the server, analyze what's on your Mac, and only upload what's different. Okay, so pretty cool. So I do know a lot of people use this as their primary publishing method. And yeah, a lot of people use it. So I'll admit, for my sandbox site, I just publish. I think just publishing straight to the server, it's worked out great for me. But for my production websites and stuff like that, I use a completely different workflow, which I've gone over, and it's highly technical. So, and we're not going down that rabbit hole today. Can a local folder be an iCloud folder for publishing? Sure, it could. Yeah, I mean, because iCloud is a local folder. So is this, let's see, is this on iCloud? I don't even know. I don't think this is on iCloud. No, this isn't on iCloud. So yeah, but it could be. Yeah, you could store it on iCloud Drive, and then yeah, that should work just fine. Because on a Mac, it doesn't what's the word? Discriminate against, a local folder versus an iCloud folder. So it should just work just fine, Roy. Okay. But getting back to warehousing, okay, went off on that little tangent about, I wanted to teach you about this local folder thing, okay? Hopefully that's useful. And you know what, I'm used to the Transmit interface, so I'm gonna do the rest of today in Transmit, but just to let you know, as we saw, Forklift works just great. Okay, Transmit, here we go. So, okay, we have this URL. Okay, we talked about, and the reason I put PDFs in here is there is actually, I mean, a big use case for warehousing is like stacks like my PDF embed stack requires that you put in the full URL to a file. Okay, and this is just a really simple way to do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just do some simple examples here. And let me just get a basic page. We're not going to really dive into swatches or anything today. Okay. I do want to show an example of PDF embed though. And to do that, I should have a PDF file. Let me just find a PDF really quick. You know what? Instead of me finding a PDF that might not be appropriate to show, yeah, some of these PDFs I purchased, I probably shouldn't upload them. Oh, here's an interesting one. No idea how this is going to look. Okay, but I'm going to upload this PDF. Okay, they're little templates for a wooden butter knife, actually. So okay, we're gonna upload this, and I'm gonna embed this PDF on this web page. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that done. So what we're gonna do is here under PDFs, I created that folder already. I'm going to take this and I'm gonna upload that into there. Okay. So now I have butter knives templates.pdf, and I'm gonna right click and say copy URL. Okay, and then here on my stacks page, I'm going to go ahead and let's search for my PDF embed stack. Okay. And if you notice in here, it's asking for the PDF URL. Well, I already copied that. So all I have to do is paste that in and voila. And the rest of it, we're not going to go over the rest of the stack. All there's not much to it. Let's go ahead and preview. And voila. We're done. See how simple that was? So here, let's just make it a little larger. It was bugging me here. Let's do like 800 pixels. There we go. Look at that. So really simple way to embed a PDF. And so there are other ways. If you want to use RapidWeaver's resources, you can do that as well. So let me show you how you could do that. If you wanted to, you could upload this and upload it into RapidWeaver resources. Then once it's inside this resources pane, you can right click and say copy URL. Okay. And then what you do is you would paste that URL directly into there. Now it's not going to work in preview until I publish this project, because at this point, RapidWeaver hasn't published that PDF. Okay. I don't know. I keep fondling back and forth whether or not resources is great to use or not. I just think that uploading it with Transmit and it's always there and it's available immediately and it's super easy. I could just right click and copy URL as well. Okay, so but if you want everything encapsulated within your project, in your RapidWeaver project, you can definitely use the resources view. Okay, so there's that. Now, if you do use the resources view inside your project, all these files are copied locally into your project. Okay, so that will increase the size of your project file. Okay, just to let you know. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It could be, some people prefer having a slimmer project file and warehousing their files. Some people like everything encapsulated within the project and the resources and whatnot. So it's really up to you. Okay. But both will work. Brett's always the jokester. Okay. Here, let's fix this PDF. Let's look at let's just do some images. Okay. I wanted to show PDF embed because I know I get a lot of confusion and questions about using PDF embed. So there we go. Next up, let's look at images. And I know I've done talks about, I'm going to use the Foundation 6 picture stack just because it supports warehousing. Okay. I think I also have let's see, we'll even go simpler. We'll even go non-Foundation 6 here. We'll just do my free warehouse image stack. Okay. So here's my free warehouse image stack, and I can go to images, and let's go ahead and right click, say copy URL on this image, which is on my server. And I want to put this right here. And voila, there we go. You can put in your alt text, you can add a link, whatever. Okay. Now, and if we preview this, obviously it will work. Okay. Now, benefits. What are the benefits of warehousing images versus adding an image directly into the project file, into the stack? Okay. To be honest, there isn't much. Okay. There are, I guess, a benefit. A lot of people like to warehouse images. Now let me say there are some types of images that you have no choice. You have to warehouse them. For example, inside Foundation 6 in the picture stack, okay, you can use, if we add in the warehouse feature, you have the ability to do like WebP, okay, or some other very modern image formats like AVIF, JPEG XL. You can actually put in MP4 file, right? So here's another thing, like if you want to do my HTML5 video stack, or you want to like host your own videos, you have to upload and warehouse those. Okay. So you have to, there's no other choice. Things like images like WebP, okay, or SVG. If you want to reference the SVG via a URL, treat it as if it was an image instead of pasting in the SVG code, like in the SVG stack. Another rabbit hole I don't necessarily want to go down. Okay. So there are several formats, essentially JPEG, PNG, and GIF. You don't need to warehouse them. Okay. To be honest, even GIF, I might even suggest that you might want to warehouse them, because I think Rapweaver and Stacks natively support JPEG and PNG very well. Pretty much any other format, if you want to use that, I'd recommend warehousing. Okay. So WebP is a big one. I did an entire live stream, I don't know, months ago about WebP. You should check that out. It's a great image format. It has its pluses and its minuses. But if you want to use it, you have to warehouse your image. Okay. And at that point, you would go in here and then you paste in your URL and you click set link. Okay. Another thing, you could also, in this reference, a resource. So you could go here and say Golden Gate. Okay. And I'm navigating to the resources. Now I should add that if you're using resources, resources aren't viewable inside edit mode. So like right now, I define the default image in warehouses. You don't see that because it doesn't work, but it does work. There we go. It does work in preview and obviously on publish. Okay. But if I were to put in the URL, so I can go to URL and I would paste in the URL to, let's say, the image that's on my server, I will see that inside edit mode. Okay. What are the benefits and drawbacks of warehousing images? So like I said earlier, people will upload images so that they can kind of organize them. A benefit of warehousing is you have better control over the names of the images and the exact URL if you care about that. A lot of people think that the image name does have some weight with SEO. If you want your images to show up in Google image search. Okay. So if you want your images to show up in Google image search and you wanted fine-grained control over the image names, then warehousing images is a good thing for you. Because if you were to use drag and drop, and I were to drag and drop, let's say this image into here, okay, you don't have control over what this image is named when it's uploaded. But if you warehouse them, you have full control. On top of that, this image is not inside my project file, and my project file is just a little bit smaller. Whether you think that's a benefit or not, that's up to you. I don't think it really matters to me, because my Mac's pretty quick anyway, and I'm not sure if anyone's done any performance tests on like if your project actually runs faster or not. I'm sure some people that have ginormous project files have seen some differences, but if you're running any average size RapidWeaver project, I don't think you're going to really notice any difference. What are the drawbacks of? So we've talked about the benefits of warehousing. Okay, you just have a little bit more control over the name and maybe your project file size. And some people just love having that organization ability, the power of, I know exactly where everything is. It's right on my server. It's never going to be there, or it's never not going to be there, right? Unless you delete it, which some people have. But hey, what are the drawbacks? Performance inside RapidWeaver will actually be slightly degraded. Okay. In edit mode, potentially, and in preview. Okay. Oh, preview. I'm loading this particular Golden Gate one in preview. So yeah, ignore that. The reason is, here, let's upload that Golden Gate image. We're gonna do a apples to apples comparison. I have that Golden Gate image right here. Okay, I'm gonna upload this there. We're going to copy URL. Okay, let's do a little test here. Actually, here, I'm just going to delete that. We're just going to do the test directly in the picture stack. All right, here, I'm going to paste in the Golden Gate. Okay, and then let's flop to preview. All right, not too bad, right? Flop back to edit mode here. Let's switch between pages. Now, what I'm looking for is, because we're referencing this image as if it was a web page, it actually has to download it from my web server, right? So inside edit mode, when I'm switching between pages, if I have a lot of these, it could potentially cause some rendering slowness because it actually has to download those images from the server. Same thing in preview. If I'm previewing this, it had to download this image from the server. Okay, because I warehoused it, and that's where I told it is going to live. Now, performance-wise on the website, once it's published, zero difference because it has to download it from the server regardless. Okay, but if I were to instead use drag and drop image here, so I go ahead and let's pick that same image. Boop. Okay. I don't know if it's kind of hard to notice. I mean, this is just one image, and there's probably some caching going on there. But if you had a page and you had lots of images, referencing an image locally on your hard drive is much different than referencing and having it being downloaded from your server, right? So hopefully you can, realize that eventually you're not going to really notice it with one or two images here or there. But if you have a lot of images on the page, it could definitely impact performance inside RapidWeaver. Okay. So hopefully that kind of, and that really is the only benefit, I think, of using, it is nice. It just drag and drop, you don't have to, there's no extra steps to having to go to transmit, upload the image and copy the URL. You just drag it in here and you're done. Right. Now, obviously with images, I'm not going to go in the caveat of make sure you optimize. You don't want to be dragging and dropping 5 megabyte images or uploading 5 megabyte images. You want to make sure they're all optimized and so on and so forth. Check out my previous live streams on all of that as well. Okay. But yeah, so we get a little bit faster performance in RapidWeaver. That's a benefit. Okay. The drag and drop, that's a benefit. The negative is, like I said earlier, we do lose control of the file name. Okay, we still have the alt tags here, right? So I can customize the alt tags, and the alt tags have a lot of weight with SEO and accessibility as well. But there are some people that just really, really care about the name of their images. And if you use these drag and drop components, you do not have control over that. So that is a negative for some people. And last negative is, the image is stored in your project file. I don't know if that's a negative. Some people see it as negative. I don't. So there's that. Okay. Sweet. Any images or any questions on kind of images or file URLs or warehousing. I think I've kind of beaten the dead horse now. I think we've gone over as much as we can. And now I want to help you learn a little bit about paths. Okay? So, let's talk about paths. Okay. So let's bring up VS Code. All right. And let's look at this. There are different ways to reference this particular path to an image. So this URL tells the browser, hey, go to this website, sandbox.joework.net, reference these paths, and find this image. Okay. But there are other ways to get to this image. Okay. This is something called an absolute path. Okay. So this is basically the path to my image without the URL, without the domain at all. Okay. So we have /depot images Yeti round PNG. Now, this only works if I'm on a web page that is sandbox.joeworkman.net. Okay, for fun, let's go ahead and do something. Okay. Actually, this is interesting. This is totally off the cuff. Let's build something here. I'm gonna do 4 columns here. Okay. And then I'm gonna do, let's do a header. Okay. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do drag and drop. Okay. And then here we're gonna do URL. Okay. And this is, let's copy that over there. I'm gonna do warehoused URL, and it's set to the warehoused image URL. Okay. I'm gonna do one more. We're gonna do an absolute path. Okay. And in here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put in that absolute path. All right. Now, if you notice, when I put in the absolute path here, it doesn't work in edit mode, and it actually doesn't work in preview. Okay. So for some use cases, this actually doesn't really work that well, if unless you're okay with not previewing. Okay. But I wanted to show you, teach you about the different paths. All right. So I'm going to publish this page really quick. All right. And actually, I'm going to add in a little bit of gutters so that we get a little bit of spacing. Here, let's turn off that just a little bit more. There we go. Let's do that. All right. Let's bring up Safari, and let's go to sandbox.joe.net. Let's just get rid of some of these things we don't need. Okay. Oh shoot. Oh shoot. What page did I publish this to? I thought this was my home page. Index.php. All right, hold on. Let me just go ahead and clean up some stuff on my server so that I can make sure that we're all golden. Let's delete. Oh, oops. I know I did. No, I did. I said I'm still publishing to that local folder. I need to change to DreamHost and then publish. Good thing I remembered I did that. That would have took us down a 5-minute troubleshooting hole. Okay. Let's go to Sandbox now. There it goes. Man, Safari's caching is just so aggressive sometimes. Okay. Now, what we'll notice here is I have 3 images. Okay. And remember, inside RapidWeaver, I only had 2. Let's educate you as to why. Okay. So, if we analyze, let's go ahead and analyze these 3 images. They are all referencing the same exact image on my server. Actually, no, they are not. This particular one is drag and drop. Okay. And if you notice, this one is stored in, let's just make this a little bit bigger. Okay. This particular one is referencing files image 1913.jpg. And as you see, that is where I was telling you, hey, and this is something called a relative path, which I haven't gone into yet. I'll explain that in a little bit. Okay. So here it's called files image 1913.jpg. The downside is, again, our nice goldengate.jpg is now renamed to something that we don't have control over. Okay. And it has a different URL or a different path. We'll jump back to that and explain what this path is in a little bit. Okay. Let's go ahead and look at the URL. So as you see here, I have an image and it's referencing the URL sandbox.joerogan.net/depot/images/goldengate.jpg. Okay. So that's referencing that image. Now, if we look at this particular one, absolute, we will see that it's referencing depot images goldengate.jpg. And what if somehow it becomes a PNG? If you have a JPEG, I wouldn't expect anything to be transferred into a PNG. I'm not going to dive into that today, into why that is, Andy. But have a look at the WebP video that I did. That should help you out. Okay, into some cases on when that happens. Okay. Okay, so this particular one is referencing depot images goldengate.jpg. Actually, it's doing something. It actually is missing the slash there, which is interesting. I wonder if RapidWeaver is removing that. Oh, it is removing the slash. Interesting. That is very interesting. Okay. So, that's interesting. RapidWeaver is removing the slash, which could make a difference because removing that slash turns this into something called a relative path, okay? Which I guess now we'll have to dive into what a relative path is. Okay, so man, okay, so this is interesting. Now remember, those are the 3 types of files. Okay. Now remember the web page that I am currently on in my browser. Okay, the web page that I am currently on in my browser is sandbox.joerogan.net/index.php. That's the web page that I'm currently on. Okay. So I'm referencing the following images, okay, on this web page. So think of this index.php as that's where I am. I'm a person sitting at the top level of my website. Okay. And then I am requesting that you go to show me this URL. So when you say show me this URL, it says go to this website, then, go to this path within that website. Now, in this particular case, the domain is the same, okay? But there's nothing saying that this could be something different. I could be doing this from images.weavers.space or something like that, right? If you want to reference content from a different domain, then you have to provide the full URL. Okay? But if you're referencing images that are on the same domain as the website you're on, then you don't have to supply the actual domain. You can use absolute or relative paths. So let's talk about what those are. Well, an absolute path, okay? Let's take this case. I'm currently at the top level of my website at index.php. And the absolute path says go to the beginning of the website. So this slash says start at the beginning, then go into the depot folder, then go into the images folder, then show me this image. Okay? So let's look at transmit, right? It's saying, again, go to the top of the website. Okay, so the top of the website is here. Go into the depot folder. Okay, cool. I'm at the depot folder. Then go into the images folder. Cool, got that. And boom, there's my image right there. Okay, so doesn't matter where I am. If I am inside about, okay, this absolute URL, okay, this absolute path says, okay, there's no website defined. There's no domain. Therefore, it's going to use the same domain. So it's going to assume we're on the same domain. Go to the beginning. So even though I'm not, remember, now I'm inside the about folder, which I'm not sure even exists on my server, but let's say it does. Oh, it does. Look at that. I have an about folder. Okay, so here's an about folder. Okay, so this absolute path says go to the beginning. So that tells it, okay, go from the about folder, start at the root of the website, then go into depot, then go into images, then here's the image. Okay. So, but relative is very different. If you notice this particular page, relative doesn't have that slash. Okay. So what that is this is a relative URL. Let's pretend I'm back at the root of my website. Okay. So I'm at the top level of my website. What this says is from wherever you are, find depot, then find images, then find your image name. So I'm already on the index.php page. I'm already at the top level of my website. Therefore, I go, oh, okay, I'm going to look for a depot folder in my current directory, which is where I'm at. Then I find images, then I find my image name. Okay? Hopefully this is making sense. Because if I now move into my about folder, okay? So let's say I'm now on my about web page. Okay? So I'm in sandbox.joe.net/about. If I were to use this relative path, guess what? That doesn't exist because I'm currently standing inside my about folder. And my relative path says, okay, look for the depot folder. Well, guess what? Inside of about, there is no depot folder. So if I were to reference this exact file from the about page, it would not work because it doesn't work. I would have to use the absolute path, or we could do something tricky. And this is there's ways of navigating your paths within relative paths. And that's with something called a // So if I'm on the about page and I reference this relative path, what this little dot dot slash says, it says go up one folder. So let's pretend I'm on the about page. So I'm inside this folder. And it says, here, let's shrink this down so we can see everything. There we go. So we have dot dot. So that says, okay, about go up one. So now I'm at the root of my website. Then I go into depot. Then I go into images. Then I find my image that I want. Right? Now, remember how on this web page I said this first drag and drop image, okay, that we saw? It had a path of files and then image 1913. So what does that mean? So that means I'm at the root of my website. Okay, I'm on the home page, and it's telling me to go into the files folder. So there we go. Here's a files folder. And in here's a bunch of files. And guess what? There is image 1913. And that is the image that's getting served up. Okay. So, and these dot dots, you can have multiple of them. So like if you had dot dot slash, that would go up 2 folders. Now, I don't necessarily recommend you're probably not really going to ever use relative paths when you're configuring your assets, but you'll definitely see it inside your source page, right? Inside you will see this, like this particular one here. Okay. I want to do a quick little test. If you remember when we did this absolute URL, RapReaver had removed that beginning slash, and that was okay because it turned it into a valid relative URL. But I want to test this. I want to go into, we're going into a little bit of a rabbit hole here. I'm going to create a new page. And we're going to call this path-test. Okay, so that's going to be the page here. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of this and put it here. All right, so I have the same exact thing. Okay, now I'm in a subfolder path test. Right, I'm gonna publish this into a subfolder, and just for fun, we're gonna do let's change this up. I'm gonna do relative. Okay, and let's go ahead and look at the setting. We want to do dot dot slash. Oops, not 2 slashes. Dot dot slash depot. Okay, so this should be the relative path. Interesting. On the path test page, let's publish this. So what I did is I created, oops, let's just do here. So I did the, one set here, we'll fix it. I did the Golden Gate, right? All right, there we go. So these are all the URLs that I'm using right now, because I decided to change the Golden Gate picture. There we go. So the absolute URL is defining the path to it just doesn't need to be an image. It could be a PDF or a zip file or whatever. And it always references the very top. Okay. And then you do relative, which is that relative path. Okay. Because I'm inside, remember I published this -path test. All right. So now that that's all done, let's go into Safari. Let's check that out. Path. Oops. I think I'm going to turn off this keyboard thing. It's kind of annoying, actually. Path-test. Okay. They're all working. Cool, actually. All right. I'm curious if I did this absolute. So that's very interesting. RapReaver converts my absolute path to be the correct relative path. I'm okay with that. Yeah, it works. As long as it works, it doesn't really matter to me. But this particular one, even though I configured it to be the root, okay, RapReaver was smart enough and it converted it to be relative paths. Interesting. And if you look at this one, it's the same exact path. Okay. So, but what's kind of cool is by using the absolute path, okay, I can, what's the use case? Why would I ever want to do that inside RapidWeaver? And one of the major drawbacks of that is that it doesn't work in preview. Neither of these will. Why doesn't it work in preview? Okay. Well, it doesn't work in preview because here, let's look at preview. If we preview this, look at the domain. It's not a website, right? It's this weird local IP address with a port, and then it gives us our website. Okay. Now the drag and drop exists because RapidWeaver published this drag and drop image locally, right? So if we look at this, let's open up the dev inspector here. It's referencing index files image 26 in this case. Okay. And that exists on this little mini local website, right? If we go to our sources view and look at image 26. If we look, here's the full URL to that. http://127.0.0.1 : some port number / path test index files blah. And if we put the URL to that, it exists because RapidWeaver created that file for us locally. And then when it'll publish it online as well. Okay. And the second image, the URL version worked because that's actually referencing the image on our final domain. Right? So that's pulling the actual image down off our server. Okay. But if we look at this absolute one, okay. Picture. Here it's referencing .. /depot /images /GoldenGate JPEG. And because that folder only exists on our server, it doesn't exist locally when RapidWeaver created this publish. So therefore, the image doesn't exist locally. It will only exist on the server. And if we look at that, if we look at I was not showing the console errors. That's weird. It's not even showing the 404 images. It should be 404 images. Like bad requests here. That's odd. I'm not going to try to troubleshoot why that is, but so yeah, it's trying to reference, in this case, it would be it's trying to look at 127.0.0.1 again /depot images, but that doesn't exist locally. Okay. I forget where I was going with all of that, but oh yeah. Okay, now I remember. Why if this doesn't work in that's a major negative for using these absolute and relative paths. Okay. I would say never use a relative path. It is just like, it's good for you to know it. Okay. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend using it. Okay. Absolute path, there could be a use case for this. The one use case is it does not reference any domains. So if you were going to be working on a site and you knew the domain was going to change or it was going to be different in the future, this is cool because it doesn't matter the domain, right? I mean, if I were to in this here, if I were to say this was a development website and I wanted to change this domain later on, if I had all these warehoused images all over the place, I would potentially have to remember to change all of these domains. And that can be annoying. But with absolute paths, you don't need to worry about that. The obvious downside is you don't see your images or your assets or whatever. Now, for images, that's a really big downside. If this was something like a button that linked to a zip file, then this is perfect, right? So let's say, for example, let's do buttons. Let's do like a link button. Okay. And Let's go ahead and what's that? The URL to that PDF. Demo PDFs. I'm just going to link to this PDF. Okay, I'm going to copy the URL so I don't mess it up. And I'm going to paste that in. And what I'm going to do is, let's say I was developing this site and I didn't need to, I wanted to make sure that when I moved this site to the final domain, I didn't need to remember to update this link. Okay. And if that domain was in there, if I had sandbox.joeworkman.net, when I moved it to, let's say, joeworkman.net, this link would be broken eventually. But if I use the absolute path, I don't need to worry about it. And since it's just a button, okay, it doesn't matter. It still looks fine in preview. Okay. And if I click on it here, it's not going to work because it's a 404. Okay. But if let's do download. Okay. If I publish that, now, if we look, this is going to be the absolute path. And if I click on that, it takes me to the PDF. Pretty cool, right? Now here I would actually choose the force download option in the Foundation 6 button so that it actually downloaded, right? If we're going to do something, let's do it right. Refresh. Boom. And that downloads the PDF. So pretty cool, right? So for buttons, that's a huge win, right? If you're linking to a particular file, not having the domain in there makes a lot of sense because it doesn't need to be previewed. It's just you're linking to that particular asset. Okay. Now I do have to say, earlier I showed you PDF embed. That requires a URL with the domain. It will not work without the domain name. So just to let you know about that. Okay. But what are some other ways that we can kind of get around this domain thing? Okay. I think this link button, that is a extremely valid use case for using absolute paths. Probably the best one, to be honest with you. Okay. With images, that's a major pain in the butt, not having to be able to preview those. But there's something we can do. Okay. And let me show you that. And we're going to use something called a macro. URL macro. All right. I'm just going to plop. All right. So let's go into here. Now, we've talked about how an absolute path, how it differs from the URL. Actually, let's go into here. Okay. And let's say I wanted to link to this image, but I wanted the domain part of this path to be fluid, right? I wanted it to pull in whatever is configured in the project file. So whatever I have configured here, I want it to go there. Okay. So let's get her done. Okay. So the way we do that is there is a macro that we can use. There's actually two macros, two different macros. We'll test one first. So it is %base_URL %. Okay. And what that does is that takes the URL configured in your project file and it puts it in front. So it's basically the same thing as doing this. But if I were to ever change the URL in my project, this URL here, the domain name, will actually update. Okay. And actually, you don't want this extra slash in there because your URL in your project file, it should end in a slash. So make sure that you don't have the slash here. So it's %base_URL % and then your path. All right. So let's try this. Go back to my path test. I'm going to go into here, edit this link, and there we go. Now, this macro is not going to work in edit mode, but it should work in preview. And it does. Okay, so it works inside preview. And if we preview this in the browser, let's have a look at what it's doing. So as you see here, even though I put in that macro, it's replaced it with my actual domain. So it's the same as using the URL, but it gives us the flexibility of being able to change the domain in the future. And then I don't need to update any of these URLs. So that's a benefit. All right. The next one is, and I recently was informed that this looked like it might be a bug. I think it's base URL. Let's test this one. And again, this macro, it won't work inside edit mode, but it does work in preview. Let's paste that in. Oh. Maybe it's let me tweak this base URL. Okay. So for right now, I think you just need to use base underscore URL. I'll file a bug about this particular one. So yeah, there we go. Base URL, base underscore URL. Okay. And then the path to your image. And with that, guys, I think we're done. I use it in Markdown linking. Yes. You can use the same thing in Markdown linking. That's a very good point. With Markdown, you have to use a URL or path to an image, so you can't use drag and drop. So yeah, there we go. That's it. If you wanted to, insert an image via Markdown here just for fun, let's go ahead and show everyone how to do that. So let's add a text stack to this page, and you just do see, it's like exclamation point, alt text, and then the URL to the image. I think that's it. There it goes. Okay, so it's the same syntax as here. We'll make this a little bit bigger. Kind of a crazy syntax. It's the same syntax as a link, except it starts off with an exclamation point. So if you do exclamation point, and then whatever you put in here is your alt text, and then that is the URL to your image, you're golden. And you can use relative paths and all that stuff too. So like you could do that if you didn't want to put in the domain. And you should be able to use base URL in there as well, I think. Here, let's test it out. I would expect that to work. Well, I wouldn't expect it to work inside edit mode, but it does in preview. Cool. Great question. Thank you for popping that one out there. Hey, so there we go, guys. Hopefully I didn't explode your brains with all the paths. Hopefully I explained it. I know the path thing is I don't think it's hard, but it's hard to explain. So hopefully I did an okay job. Hopefully I didn't go too fast, or hopefully I explained it well. Because it is sort of a very esoteric, minimal difference between the different types of things. Hopefully, understanding of how the directories work, and I always think of it as like I'm in this folder and then I need to move up to, or I think of like a little video game where it's like I need to move up and then, whatever. So, well, I linked to other pages and absolute pathing in the, yes, you can link to other pages using that as well. James, your head hurts a bit. Okay. Well, sorry, James, go get some Aleve or an ibuprofen and get to work. Get to work, man. Okay. Thanks everybody. Hope you enjoyed today. We will see you. Hopefully I'll see you Friday. I said, hopefully I'm going to be able to join Friday's Hangout. We'll see. If not, maybe I'll do a cameo. If I'm not home, I'll join in from my phone for a little bit, just for fun. And see how everyone's doing. And you saw a little sneak peek. I posted on the community some sneak peeks for the stack I'm working on, Drift. That's a fun one. Hopefully you guys can have a look at that. Give me some feedback. There's already some questions asked. It's going to be a really cool stack. So that's going to be a fun one. And we'll see you on the community, guys. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And we'll see you soon.